Right on. Guys, that sounded great. Hey, this is Perry with Premier Guitar. We're doing a rig rundown today with Atlanta, Georgia's own Brother Hawk. What's up, guys? How are you today?
Pretty good, man. How are you?
Good, good. Good to see you, Nick. Good to see you, JB. It's been
What's up, Perry?
It's been a long time. I guess the last time I saw you guys was literally burning down the Ryman. I think you guys were on tour with Blackberry Smoke, and I came to that show, and it was awesome. It was awesome.
Thanks, man.
You guys been staying busy recording and all that?
Yeah, we're working on a bunch of new demos right now and stuff, working on a new record basically. Just really taking our sweet time and like trying to do it right since everybody's got time nowadays.
Yeah, right on. Yeah, and I know you guys actually have been busy in the past couple of years. Ever since Big Medicine, you know, that kind of threw you guys into the forefront of the southern rock scene that's happening right now, which is
right.
It's cool to see a resurgence. You know, I think the last time this was a thing, it was like the Black Crowes, and now all of a sudden it's like you got Blackberry Smoke and you guys and all this really cool, you know, almost Americana feeling southern rock coming out, and like,
sure.
Dude, it's great. It's awesome. If you are a fan of my rig rundowns, or if you've seen any of the ones I've done before, JB and I actually go way, way, way back. Like 20 years ago, we both played in really crappy hardcore bands. And so when I found out, a friend of mine here was like, dude, have you heard JB's new band? I'm like, are there breakdowns? And they're like, no, you don't get it. They're like, I think it was Sprouse. She was like, Emily Sprouse, she was like, you need to go listen to what JB's working on. And it blew my mind. I'm like, oh, of course you would be doing that. Like JB was always like the best guitarist when we were kids in our whole circle of friends. And so here you are just like melting faces with blues solos now. So, it's great.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate that, dude. You got me grinning from ear to ear over here.
Dude, I miss you. It's nice to like see a friend face to face in this weird way.
Dude,
but
absolutely. We didn't even practice for like 2 months, and it was terrible. We didn't even see each other, you know? We were like texting the band dudes that we miss them, you know? Like, yeah. It was wild.
Right on. So, been working at home, obviously. I've seen you, JB, primarily with Les Pauls. I think even when we were kids, you were playing Les Pauls, right?
Yeah, I got this standard when I was like 18, and it was like pretty much my only guitar ever. You know, I tried some other things to like try to have backups and stuff, but never really worked. So this has like been all I've known up until like 5 or 6 years ago. I got this deluxe.
Yeah, and that deluxe is beautiful. It looks like you got some mini buckers in there, huh?
Yeah, so it's a Deluxe Pro. It's a 78, and they come with P90s. But mini humbuckers are my favorite pickups. They're like really, to me, they sit in between what I want out of a humbucker and what I would want out of like a single coil. They're a little lower output, and they have like a bouncier, kind of clearer tone to them. But they interact with pedals more similarly to a humbucker. You know, they're like get really focused and tight. For me, at least, that's what I like about it. And then the noise too. You know, like
right.
Primarily, I'm playing like some kind of fuzz and then using my volume knob. And with the P90s and like little crappy clubs when we play and stuff like that, like lights and shit, like it would just sometimes like you'd be trying to have like an intimate moment with the volume rolled off and just be like. And it's just like, oh God, no, you know. So there's ways around that, but you know, not for us right now. So I like the minis the best. Basically.
I totally get that. Are those? I know those aren't stock because you said it came with P90s. So like, what?
Yeah.
What did you decide to go with?
Well, I've got just a Lawler in the bridge, and that's what I base everything around. Like whatever pedal, whatever speakers, whatever head, like it all like. How does it sound with the bridge pickup in this guitar, basically? That's where I start with everything. This is a Porter in the neck. I really like it. It sounds really good, but for me, I have this thing where I get hung up on one pickup or the other because in my mind, or just with my guitars, the way it's always worked is on the bridge pickup, I need to set my amp this way to have it sound perfect, and on the neck, I need to set my amp this way to have it sound perfect, and they're not the same. So like I do stuff with one or the other, but I have to like make one thing the basis of it. Forever I used just the neck pickup for the first like 5 years of the band, and then when I got this guitar and put this in the bridge is when I started using the bridge pickup all the time.
Ah, okay. Yeah, so like when I've seen you before, I noticed a lot of times, you know, like most blues dudes, you'll go to the neck for, you know, say like, for example, like the solo in Big Medicine or something. That's gotta be a neck pickup, right?
So on the recording, it is, because at that point, like when you saw us at the Ryman, I was still only using the neck. But when we play it now, like I just kind of adapt everything to whatever sound I'm trying to use at the moment. You know,
Right.
I don't have to play it on the neck, like because I did it on the record, just because
Right.
it's gonna sound good, and my rig changes all the time. So
Yeah, I was gonna say that must free you up quite a bit too if you're going from like kind of just one consistent neck pickup sound to being able to go back to the bridge and kind of play with it there, because there's,
yeah,
you know, it's almost like a different dialect.
for sure, it brings some things to the song, and I'll probably play it a different way. But the main thing is like with the bridge is like I still like to have. I always used to use the neck because I like to have a ton of low end. Like I want to hear and feel all that low end, and that's why like I can't flip back and forth, because when I use the bridge, I crank the. Can I? I crank the down the low end, and so like when you go back to the neck, it's all mud unless it's like something that you want to sound like that. But like my clear, clean tones from either pickup just have totally different settings on the amp that I would want to use. You know, because you got to cut the bass when you use the neck to like get that same kind of clarity. You know.
Yeah, absolutely.
But I'm just always looking for something like thick and warm and sounds good.
So is this guitar here like one that you would play for the whole set, or do you keep your standard as a backup, or?
I pretty much keep the standard as a backup, and then we have some songs and other tunings, and we don't always play them. So if we do, I'll like tune this to whatever it needs to be for the show, and then like swap out guitars. And if we don't, I'll just keep it in. We play in E flat, so I'll keep them both in E flat if I just need a backup and we're not playing any. And then I use a capo a lot sometimes too, especially for older stuff, like Big Medicine is a capo song. So sometimes if we're not playing alternate tunings, I'll like have one guitar that's for capoed songs. If you know what I mean, if it's comfortable enough. If not, I'll just play it all night with one guitar.
See, what you're telling me right now is that you have the biggest balls on the planet, because when you play, you bend notes like just about off the fretboard. So like to do that and not worry about a string breaking, what are you playing, like 8-gauge strings or something, or are you just manhandling them?
They're 12 through 60.
Jesus. What, do you have one of those like hand exercise things from the 80s?
Okay, so I started playing guitar because of Stevie Ray Vaughan, obviously.
Sure.
And I started playing guitar when I was 9 years old, and all it took was me reading one time that he used huge strings, and I've just used 12. I've used 12 since I was a child, you know. So it just doesn't feel weird or strange to me. I get like really, especially if I get zoned out and like playing leads. If I'm playing smaller strings, I'm just like doing like the big strings like center me and like calm me down to like play thoughtful things. I feel like, you know, because it's like you have, even though I'm used to them, like you still have to fight them.
Yeah.
You know, like I'm fighting, but that's good.
Right.
Like you want to hear that somehow, you know, not, at least I do, like the way we play, you know, like people that do things effortlessly and stuff, like sounds cool. I'm not like, that's just not how I play at all. I'm not like a super clean, technical, like effortless kind of dude. Like I'm really like trying to dig in and make something sound wild.
I personally love 12s for a lot of different kinds of music, but when you get a 12 set, are you getting like a custom set, because the third has got to be wound on a 12 set, right? Like
no, so forever I used the Ernie Ball, not even Slinkies, I think.
Oh,
they were 12 through 56 with like a 24 plane, and that was cool, but the 24 plane was like so fucking crazy, like it was like impossible, like all the time. It was like a piece of like piano wire or something. It's like, you know, it's just like crazy. But then I found my friend Eric hit me to these Diodarios that are 12 through 60 and the 60 on the bottom, and they got a 22 playing third, and that's really been perfect for me. I just like it like that. The 60 on the bottom is like the important part, really.
Right.
That's really what I'm after, because I want that like low end, like don't, you know, you just hit that clean low E. Like that's the first thing I do every time I turn my amp on. Is
just to see where you're at. I totally get it. I gotta try. I need to try a set of those, because I love, you know, down tuning and playing heavier strings, but the wound third makes like swells and stuff like that impossible for me, and it's like so hard for me to bend. So yeah, that's great advice. I will definitely look into some new sets.
No, these are perfect. And I want to say DR makes like 1 2. They're even lighter on the top and even heavier on the bottom, but that's too much of a spread for me. But depending on what you're trying to do, like it could be cool.
Yeah, that DR set is like one of those where you'll have to like completely have your guitar reset up.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Well, I mean, there's not. I don't think a lot of people play a 60 on the low E or Les Paul, so I had to have some shit done to these. I don't know what. I just drop them off and get them back. You know, I trust the experts on that stuff.
Guys to do the mathy stuff. Yeah, I totally get it.
I'm too much of a perfectionist to try to do it myself because I'll just drive myself insane. So I'll just take it to someone who I know is going to do a perfect job. I just leave it at that.
Right on, man. All right, so we got guitars covered. I've seen you with a number of different amps over the years.
Right.
I know that your rig changes quite a bit, but for right now, this is what you've been using in the studio, right?
This is what I've been using actually for a long time now. It was changing a lot because it really took a long time for Nick and I to find the right dynamic between us for the stage volume, and that was like what led me down different avenues of pickups and just all that kind of thing, because him playing the Rhodes like a rhythm guitar basically like makes it. He's not just a keys player, obviously. You know, It sounds like fucking insane. And so, anyway, I used to use like 100-watt, like Dumble style Fender stuff a lot when I was using the neck pickup all the time. And then when I switched to the bridge, is when I got into plexis and stuff. And I've had this Termino for like a year, maybe, or something like that. But I've been using basically like 50-watt bass spec plexis for several years now in different forms, but this is my favorite one. It's like a 2006 Termino, so it's got really high plate voltage on the power transformer, so it's like very, compared to another, it's really loud and like clean and clear compared to like most of them are like 425 or 430 or something like that. I had another that was 450 or something.
Right.
But like that extra voltage really like gives it what I want out of it.
Because I'd have to imagine that you want, because of the style that you're playing, you got to want control of your fuzz and distortion and stuff. If that had a lower plate, like I guess you'd have breakup earlier than you'd want it, right?
It does affect the headroom, and it kind of affects the overall clarity. Just depending on what you're using, like you can play to that or you can't, but I like higher headroom stuff. That's why I like the lower output pickups and fuzzes, because the more room you have to play around with stuff, like the more you can do, you know, just different tones out of simpler things, I guess.
Yeah. I mean, you're a pretty dynamic player. You're always on the volume, so that makes a ton of sense. What's sitting next to that Germino?
So these are just two. These are just both these cabs are going to this Germino. This has they're both got Celestians. This has got Alnico creams in it, which I really like, and this has the Heritage G12H 30 55 hertz, like the bass cone greenbacks.
Oh, cool.
These are my favorite speaker, but I kept blowing them on a 212 with just this head. And then so because they're only 30 watts and it's like a 50 plus watt head, you know, they would last about 6 months and then they would be over. So I started using the creams because they don't really sound the same, but I also really like them. But I use this cab so I can't use this head with just this cab for like more than a show or so or something like that. But I like the way they sound together a lot. So whenever possible, I'll use both cabs. But this is my only amp. I just have this one head. I don't run.
So out of curiosity, because I've always known you to have like some kind of boutique-y stuff, especially your heads. When you guys are touring Europe, do you backline or you just take your stuff with you, or?
It was totally backlined. I just took my guitar, and Nick took a Nord, and like we rented everything else.
Was it weird?
It sucked.
That aspect of it was totally awful. It's like to be people who like spend so much time trying to have something that like is just like you want it, and obviously we have like somewhat unique stuff. I mean, it's not like you could backline mix. It's like his Rhodes is modded and stuff. I mean, he'll tell you about it, but it's like, so it was just like a huge adjustment. We were just like doing it to do it because, you know, it's got to get done somehow, but we didn't have the money to like send all our stuff over, so.
Right, and there's also the issue, like, I don't think anyone's ever like specifically brought this up to me, but you know, the power in Europe is different. So even if you get a basement or something that you're totally comfortable with here in the United States, it probably is not going to react the same. You know.
Right, you got to have things in place for that, and so like with just the list of like, I think the only thing was is that I have I had a power supply for my board that could like have multiple volts.
Go back, yeah.
Other than that, like everything was we just got it from over there.
That rules. All right, well, speaking of your board, you are not like one of those spaceship self-aware pedal board guys, but you do have a couple of things on there.
My pedal board is like already. I would love to just be able to do everything with like 2 pedals, and I just can't, and it drives me crazy. And I even have like my in-ear stuff for my vocals on my board, and that like makes me insane too, because I just don't even want to look at it. I just want it to be really as straightforward and simple as possible. But I got a couple of things, yeah.
Yeah. Let's walk through your signal chain. What are you hitting first?
So I've got the Peterson Strobo Stomp. That's the tuner I'm using right now. That one's really good. It's really cool. I was using the Sonic Research Turbo tuner for a long time before this came out, which I still have as a backup. But this one's really cool. It has like the sweetened settings, I guess. Like, so it like has like a guitar setting instead of just being totally chromatic. So like kind of it's compensated, I think, or whatever. Yeah,
like I think pedal steel guys use those a lot for that.
Okay, sure.
That reason, yeah. And
that makes sense.
Good on you, because I have one, and it's all I can do to not have a seizure using that thing on stage, dude. Like, the way it like keeps moving, it's like, no, just give me something big and lights up green when I'm in tune.
Right. You just want a yes or a no. You don't want to like have to think. I totally feel that, but then when I started using the Sonic Research, I got obsessive about like how accurate it could be, and I'm just like, I try not to be like too stoned on stage, like tuning for a million years, and like.
Dude, I know that you guys did that Joe Bonamassa Blues Cruise, which I actually had the opportunity to go on too, and there were certain times that it was hard enough to just stand up on that goddamn boat, let alone use a strobe tuner, like, and be like doing this number, like, no thanks.
We played one set in particular where it was like really like you were like had to pick your feet up kind of shit because the boat was rocking so much. And
the last night we were on that boat, man, there were like moms just falling all over, like, because there was like really, even the crew of the ship was like, oh wow, this is pretty rough waters. We haven't seen it like this.
All 9 of the damn keyboard on.
Oh yeah. That's so funny. All right, so what do you got going on after the tuner?
So the main thing I use is a damn maggot brain.
Oh, fuzz,
yeah. Damn, yeah, okay. And so it's like a BC 108 fuzz face. And it's like, I use it a lot. And this is, that's like, my clean tone with it, like on like 2 on my volume, and then like. Shit, but you know, it's because we're on Premier Guitar right now, but that's what it sounds like. It just kind of runs the, you know, you just get a lot out of it, you know, like those sweet spots and stuff that.
Yeah, man. Obviously, I'm listening to you guys via Skype right now, and you guys will hear better recorded audio in the actual rundown, but even on the Skype audio, I can tell how dynamic that fuzz is to your volume. That's wild.
Yeah, that's what makes it so great. To me, the fuzz face is like the fuzz pedal.
Right.
Just because of that, like it's a rig in itself. Like, just if you got a crank amp and you put it on, like you've got 4 pedals. You know,
totally.
Just like for what? Because I used to have a ton of like this kind of drive and that kind of drive and then this fuzz and like that. When I found like I use that, and then the other thing that I use a lot is this Rangemaster. And my friend Andrew actually built it for me. He has a company here in Atlanta called Moreland Magnetics, and he makes like one at a time
cool.
fuzz reproductions and stuff. And this is actually like in like an old fucked up case that he had and everything, but it just sounds really good. I used to use a Creepy Finger Sugar Boost all the time, which is another Rangemaster kind of thing. I used that exclusively for a long time. Like no other fuzzes or anything. It was just that and my volume knob. But I got the fuzz, and then he showed me this Rangemaster. It sounds really good. A lot more focused than the fuzz face, you know?
It is, yeah.
But it's got the same range, but like a totally different tone on the cleanup. So there's like
It's weird. I'm not noticing a huge volume disparity. It's just literally shifting the tone, but it's really consistent. Yeah, that's wild.
yeah. They're both, like I said, so they both just depending on what the song or texture. There's like a lot within both of those pedals that I usually it's one or the other, and I'm just using the volume knob, and I don't ever stack them together or anything like that. They're just there for a song or a part, or
Right.
that's it. You know, I just leave them on a lot.
I've not known you to play, like, to be a super, like, heavy modulated effects guy, but I know that you have some delay, at least some delay on your board.
Yeah, so actually the only other two things, well, no, that's not true. So the next thing I have is a little crazier. It's a Prescription Electronics Experience, which is like a Fox tone machine. It's like an octave fuzz kind of thing. And it's like really...
Dude, that sounds
because
huge.
It like, yeah, no, it's like I'm obsessed with it because I love. So I like that just super warm, gritty, like fuzzy kind of range, and then I also just like love octave fuzz. I always have some kind of octave fuzz on my board, and this is my favorite that I found because I was using like a Neutron clone for a while too, so it's like a sub octave, but then that. I just wanted that because it's so big, and like I want it to be big and heavy, and this is like the upper octave spread, but it has all that huge, like it's just massive sounding. It's the most massive sounding pedal on my board.
Yeah,
when
you kick on an octave fuzz live, at like, because you guys are a 4-piece, you know, obviously Nick is handling a lot of those frequencies, but in a different way.
All of those, so that means like when I do hit something like that, it's just, you know what I mean? It's adding to it, like it's
bringing it up a notch. Yeah,
yeah, totally.
That rules.
And it's got a lot of like, the octave character doesn't change, but the amount of fuzz within it changes with the volume knob. So it goes from like. It's like super disgusting.
I love that, like a gated, spitty, like nasty ass, like about to blow up sound. That's so cool.
Yeah, there's just I only like things that have that capability to like if it's just on or off and you can't do anything else with it, I'm not interested, but that's like not what I'm doing over here. I'm doing other stuff.
Oh right.
I use the Analog Man ARDX20 analog delay. I really, really love it. It sounds really fucking good and warm and really it's just... Then the slapback stuff. Just pretty standard stuff. I
So
deal with that.
I'm not super familiar with. I see a lot of analog man pedals, but I don't know that particular one. Is that got two separate delay settings or something?
Yeah. Basically, it's like two analog delays in one. There's like a long setting and a short setting, like an A switch and an on-off, and then I have like a tap for it too.
Oh, is it an external tap tempo kind of thing?
It's got like an external controller that you can use as like a preset thing or a tap tempo, and you can like add modulation with it. So that's actually the only actual modulation I have on my board. Is like sometimes if I want like something a little more choral, I'll use the modulation on the delay. Oh. Because I use the delay a ton, especially in the newer stuff.
Yeah, which I actually picked up on. I love how like spacey and watery the new stuff is sounding to me. It's almost like if Thrice were a southern rock band. I love it. It's like, oh, okay, yeah, this is great.
Yeah, it's a lot like that. I'll take that.
Yeah.
But yeah, just because with the newer stuff too, I'm not like really playing a lot of rhythm, if at all, because Nick is just so much better at it than I am. Like the Rhodes is so much thicker, and like he's just like the way he does that makes it where I don't need to. So I play a lot more like atmospheric, but sort of bluesy kind of stuff. You know, like over the top of it, like while I'm singing and stuff. That's kind of the idea. But yeah, and I was gonna say too, I really love things like vibe and chorus, but I just can't ever find a place for them on my board. I get them, and then it's like, because I sing too, and I'm like, okay, it's time for this solo, and I gotta hit this fuzz or do whatever, and then it's like, oh, now I gotta hit the univibe too, like if I want that, and it's just like, it's always seemed like too much, and I really, if I want stuff like that, the prescription, the octave thing, it really like reacts to your vibrato. You know, you can get that like kind of like really like, especially with like the delay on, it's like. It'll do all that kind of stuff for you, just like with a different thing without having I just don't like to have a bunch of pedals.
I totally get it. Yeah, especially if you're singing, it's.
I have too much for a singer already, but I just like have stuff that I like and I want to do, and I also am not like a rack controller kind of person either, like I should be if you're, I don't know.
Well, I don't know. For blues, I think it's different because it's an emotional thing. It's not like you're playing metal where the changes happen on this particular beat. You know, for you guys,
that's true.
It's like a little looser and kind of like who's feeling what and where are we going with it. I like that. I love that approach for sure.
Well, good.
Is that everything on your board, JB?
No, the last thing is I have a sub-decay super spring theory reverb. It's like a spring reverb pedal, and that stays on all the time.
You just leave it on always? Yeah.
I leave it on always. And I actually went through a ton of like actual tube units and tanks and just different shit, and this thing, like, I like love it. It's like it is the most consistent part of my entire rig except for my guitar.
That's funny.
Yeah, because it was just like, without it. I could obviously make that sound better, but just like adds like a size, and like I've always been, like, I used heads with reverb before, so I've just always had that, a little taste of it, and so I just use that.
Yeah, it's amazing the difference with just a little subtle reverb that you're using, how different it sounds.
Right, well, it's also got the preamp that whatever they used, JFET, whatever they used, and it sounds really, really good. So, like, if for some reason I wanted it to be totally dry, I would just turn the reverb on the pedal off. I wouldn't turn, like, a lot of people use, like, an Echoplex or something, or leave something on, or, like, have a drive they leave on, but the reverb does that for me, because it just sounds really good, and it runs at 18 volts, so it takes all the fuzzes really well. Like,
oh, wow, okay.
It's one of the best pedals that I've played. I just really, really highly, heavily endorse it, because once I switched to plexis, trying to find the right reverb was a nightmare.
Oh, I bet.
Like with all they sound like brittle or shitty, and they don't take the fuzzes right, or just anything that you could imagine, or like with the actual units, it like matters where you put them, and it like, it was too much. And this thing just really sounds incredible, and will stay there until forever, I would imagine. So, but that's it for my pedal board.
Well, hell yeah, that rules. All right, so let's hop over to Nick, because Nick, even though you're obviously not playing guitar, you're taking a pretty guitar approach to y'all's music? Like I could see your pedal board there on the ground. Like you're running through guitar effects pedals, right?
Yeah. The Fender Rhodes is like, it's a electromagnetic instrument. It has like pickups like a guitar.
Oh no shit.
So that's why it just lends itself really well to running through pedals and a guitar amp. So this is like, the Rhodes is like that's the basis for like my whole rig, is what I started with this band with. And so like inside there's like hammers hitting these, they're called tines. It's basically like a tuning fork, and then there's like a guitar pickup on the end of each one.
Weird.
And they're all wired together.
Is it like a transducer style pickup, or is it like, does it look like a giant single coil long pickup or something?
It's a single coil like for each note.
That's
crazy.
Rad.
So yeah, so it fucking runs through these pedals, and I can do all kinds of crazy shit with them.
Man.
And then the organ, I use the organ
Sure.
also, and this is like for piano stuff. But this is like the main thing.
So, out of curiosity, what's the most fun pedal for running your Rode?
Well, I guess that depends on your definition of fun. Like obviously, like the Greer hammer. I don't know if you're familiar with Nick Greer.
Oh yeah, Nick is my homie.
Yeah.
Love you, Nick. I hope you're watching.
I love you too, Nick.
Yeah, fuck yeah. His the hammer is like an insane like distortion fuzz pedal that like just it sounds incredible. But like also the Strymon Deco.
Oh yeah.
Is like has become like one of my favorites on the board. Just because of all the shit it does.
Let me hear your Rhodes clean, and then let me hear it with that Greer pedal. Out of curiosity.
So this is just nothing on. Well,
okay.
Except for the reverb.
Okay.
That's my clean tone, and then with the hammer.
That is so huge.
Nasty. Yeah.
What do you think about that, Perry?
I'm feeling that, dude. That is so nasty. I just love that.
I do too, man. It's great. It's awesome to be in a band with him. I just enjoy every second of it.
Oh,
yeah,
man.
I mean, having the Rhodes is like, it's crazy because it has an insane range that like, it's like a baritone guitar, but like, it just like covers everything. So, and that's my goal, is to like, I like having things. You know how we like things nice and thick and girthy in this band. So
Oh yeah.
Just having that there to like cover everything, and then if JB's gonna throw on one of those insane pedals he's got on, I've got shit to like come up under it.
Complement it, yeah.
Yeah.
Cool. So other than the Nick pedal or the Strymon, like what are there any that you just leave on all the time, or are you playing with them all?
The one thing I leave on all the time is like JB is the reverb. I've got a Catlin Bred Talisman.
Well, those are great. Yeah.
That is one of the
awesome fucking.
Yeah, it's one of the pedals that he tried out, and it wasn't quite working for him, I guess. But like I tried it, and it's a plate reverb. It also takes the pedal. It takes all my drive pedals really well, and it sounds really good. So like without it, it sounds kind of like JB. Like it sounds good, but like that's just never. It's never something that we want.
With that liveliness to it.
Yeah. So when it's on. Mine is pretty lively. Like it has a lot of reverb, but like it just works for all.
Yeah, I want to know like scientifically why that affects me emotionally different. You know what I mean? Like when you hear something without reverb, it's like, oh, okay, cool. But then you hear it with reverb, and it's like, oh yeah, like what is that shit?
Absolutely.
Yeah,
it's so cool.
It puts space around it. Like,
yeah.
In a good way.
And then you were playing your Rhodes through a guitar amp and cab, right?
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah, it's a plexi also.
Oh wow.
50 watts. It's a hand wired clone that someone built, and we don't really know who did it.
Oh wow.
It sounds badass though. Like even through guitar, like it sounds.
Right. Where'd you find it?
Some dude was selling
Craigslist.
Craigslist, like in Alabama or whatever. And I like went out like
I forgot that I found it and like showed it to you.
Yeah.
I was like, go buy this.
Well, because I had that Sovtech MiG 100H forever, and an amazing amp, like it sounded awesome, but like we were starting to get into that where we needed like tighter bass response. Things just needed to be cleared up a little bit, and so the Sovtech was just a little too spread for all that. So when I went to this thing, and you know, JB was going to the plexis, like even though we're playing like basically the same amp, we're able to stay out of each other's way a little bit more.
That's the whole idea. That's kind of what led us to the stuff that we have. Is like everything's about live. Like in the studio, like that's cool, but we play live in the studio too. Like we don't go in and, you know, we just go in and play live. So everything's always about how it is live for us. So like we spent a long time like figuring out what he needed to be playing this through and what I needed to be playing, and then the Leslie was like the final piece that were like everybody occupies their own space. Like that's what we were after.
Yeah.
You know, as we first got together, it was like, I got my tone, it sounds awesome. I got my tone, it sounds awesome. Then we just play. But you know, like through the years, it's like trying to, like I said, in a non-typical scenario, figure out exactly where we need to be, like on stage.
Yeah.
At the same time, you know.
Yeah, that makes a ton of sense, especially because you know, like a piano or Rhodes, you're covering so much mid-range. And the guitar is a mid-range instrument, so it makes sense that you would use like, you know, an octave fuzz or something to kind of find your place beyond that, you know.
Right. The bridge pickup too was like also a response to that, because I really love that really round, sweet Stevie Ray Vaughan like neck sound. That's like my thing. But then it just like it didn't do what it needed to with the Rhodes. You know, like a huge heavy Rhodes and then like a clean like neck pickup guitar over the top. Like I didn't think it sounded bad, but it just wasn't. And like now that it's more, just like a more focused thing, like that kind of soars over the top instead of like fighting it at all. It just sounds good.
Yeah, and the speakers I'm using help too, because I've got Eminent Swamp Things in here, which are like, they take some of that mid heaviness out. You know, it like it's not competing with the speakers that he's using that are a little bit more mid heavy. So
science.
All those little things like add up and they help.
Totally.
And especially like,
years of sleepless nights.
Yeah. The Leslie was huge though for the organ, because before that, I don't know if you were like at the Ryman, I had another Avatar cab and a Fender PA 100 head, which is kind of like a twin reverb, and so I had like a Leslie pedal, like an emulator, running through that. But like when it was running through a guitar amp, it was sitting in the same space as everything else. And you know, like to pump out the organ, it would have to be fucking screaming loud.
Right,
it was just starting to get to be too much. And when I got a hold of this Leslie, it's got a big like 15-inch bass speaker and then like a tweeter horn up top, so it's like really spread and it sits in its own like frequency range. It kind of like sits on the bottom and the top and away from everything else, away from the Rhodes.
Yeah, those things are so rad, and from what I understand, they're becoming pretty increasingly hard to come by.
Yeah, I mean they don't really make them anymore.
Right.
They do, but not the same way. Not with like a tube amp. It's like a 40-watt tube amp in there, but it fucking screams.
Do you know what tubes go in something like that?
This has the
67 C1 or whatever that's called. I can't remember.
They're massive.
It's like a big bottle.
Yeah.
Oh, like old television tubes almost.
Yeah.
Not like that huge, but it's like definitely more like the size of like a KT88 or something.
Oh, okay,
or like but it's not.
Is it a 6550? I think it's
something like that, but it has like it's cylindrical instead of, I don't know.
That's pretty cool. All right, I got just a couple more questions before I let you guys go, because this is fun for me. Nick, how much of a pain in the ass is it to move that Rhodes?
Well, yeah, it's a pain in the ass, and the Leslie, because we take the Leslie also. We take everything.
Right. So with your Rhodes, it's not like say a CP70 that's like an actual harp. So do you ever have to tune it?
Yeah, I have to tune it.
Oh, really?
Not as much. It holds its tuning pretty well, but like there's like little springs on the tines that you like slide back and forth.
Oh, like a fine tuner of sorts.
Yeah. But it holds up pretty well. So I don't like. Everyone always looks at us crazy when we're like loading in and out, like y'all are crazy for like lugging this shit, but we're so used to it, we just do it all the time, and so like we don't even really think about it. I mean, at the end of a night after playing a show, it can be like, oh my god, you just fucking leave this shit here. But like, it's like we could never do it without all this stuff, because like
we would just be doing something totally different.
Yeah.
You know, it's not like we couldn't do anything, but like the thing that we do like requires this. So it's like we just do that. And if we were doing something, like I said, if we were having to use different equipment, we would just be doing a different kind of thing, period.
Yeah, that makes sense. All right, so last question. I'm going to hop back to you, JB, because you're doing the thing that you guys do. Did like a Strat style guitar just never work for you or sit right with you? Because
it totally didn't. So my first guitar ever was a Strat style guitar. I had a PV Predator. I learned how to...
I remember those, yeah.
Yeah, it was awesome. I wish I still had it. I really wish I still had it. I have pictures of me playing it, but I don't have it anymore. But at that point in my life, like, you don't know, you know? And I think it's not that... So I didn't play anything like that for a long time, because I played in hardcore bands and I was playing like an LTD or some shit like that, you know, like through my teenage years. And then when I turned 18, I just always really wanted a Black Les Paul. Like, that's like my dream guitar since I was a kid. I saw Johnny Winter on this like Muddy Waters like review thing or some shit, and he was playing a Black Les Paul Custom, and I was like, that's the coolest looking guitar I've ever seen. And then of course Neil Young is like my all-time favorite. Neil Young is God, and that's obviously like arguably the most iconic Black Les Paul there is. So I just always really wanted one, and so when I was 18, I got this. My Uncle Kevin, who's an awesome dude, I love you, Uncle Kevin, he bought this for me when I turned 18 because he said if I wasn't drinking and on drugs when I turned 18, he'd get me the guitar I wanted. And I was straight edge, so I was like, oh, this is incredible. This is perfect. And I called him up, and he tried to play like he didn't remember, but I was like, no, you said it. So I got this, and then, you know, I was just a broke kid with a Les Paul, so I never knew anything else. I spent the next 10 years not playing anything else. And so I actually got a Strat because I really wanted one, because I really love that neck pickup Fender sound. Like, I fucking love it. Like, it just does something to me. But I could never get it out of a Les Paul like the way I wanted it, you know. And then when I got the Strat, it sounded incredible, and I actually wrote a song on it, which was cool. But I tried to play one show with it, and I was like, this is a nightmare. Like, I can't stand up and wear this guitar. Like, it felt so crazy, because I've been wearing a 12-pound 80s Les Paul for 10 years, you know? Like, so it just didn't work. And so I just stuck with Les Pauls, and then and then this changed everything, like the Deluxe, because I just get closer to the sound that I wanted. But I feel like anytime you're like looking for a tone, you're just trying to emulate your hero, and you'll never ever succeed. So you just come up with something original, because like you're trying to sound like Mark Ford and Neil Young and Jimi Hendrix at the same time, and you sound nothing like that at all, like ever. And you just sound like yourself somehow because you fail. You sound like yourself because you fail at like trying to sound like who you like or whatever, you know? So.
Yeah, that's interesting. That's really cool.
So I failed at making a Les Paul sound like SRV on a Strat, so it just sounds like what I sound like now, you know?
Well, right on, dudes. I can't tell you how much I appreciate you taking the time to sit down and talk with me and do this. This has been super fun. If you guys at home would like to, hop over to Spotify or any streaming platform and check out. Big Trouble Sessions came out, what, like
Last November.
Last November, right? Cool.
Yeah, and you should go to YouTube and watch us do it, because it's way better than just listening to it. The whole Big Trouble EP there's a video for each song on YouTube of us recording the actual song.
Oh, rules.
Like we did like a live session where we had someone film and we tracked at the same time. So you can go watch everything on YouTube, on our YouTube channel, from the Big Trouble Sessions, and everything else, like I said, like you said, is still streaming.
Yeah, and do you guys have a website that people can go check out more about you?
We do. It's brotherhawkatl.com. And all of our handles on social are brotherhawkatl, Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter, and all that stuff.
Well, right on. All you at home, pray for the ATL. Until next time, this is Perry with Premier Guitar. Stay tuned for more rig rundowns, riff rundowns, video lessons, all that fun stuff to satiate your guitar dork needs. Later, guys.